right, so today we're going to do a sequence I call the mixed bag, and it's a mix of hips and spine, and they are approached separately but complementary. So any stretch we're doing for the hips is going to complement the work we do with the spine and vice versa. All right, so we're going to start very simple, and that's with a half butterfly pose. So we'll bring the right leg straight, left foot to the inside of the thigh, and then the simplest version is just you relax forward and down like so, and you should feel stretch back here in the back of the right thigh. Now you have options. If you have yoga props, you could put a block under your knee, two blocks under your forearms, a block under your forehead. You could also alternatively sit on a block, okay? Your foot does not need to point in any particular direction or flex. You can just let it relax. If it feels better to flex it or to point it, by all means you can do that as well. And we have, because we're doing hips and spine today, we have more postures to get through. And so we won't be holding as long today. We'll do 3 minutes for each pose, okay? Okay, so we'll gently come up and switch legs. We want to feel a stretch in the back of the left thigh. And as always, we don't want any sense that this posture is compromising our health. This pose is usually fine for most people, but two areas I can think of where you may experience difficulty is maybe you've torn a hamstring before, and so you might be feeling pain in the back of this leg or up at the ischial tuberosity, which is basically in your buttocks, like right at the bottom of your buttocks. So if that happens, you may need more support. You want to support yourself with props until you feel that it's safe. Okay, until you feel that you aren't, the sensations aren't so intense. And maybe if you have a very acute injury, you just shouldn't do this today. So if you just injured yourself, usually it's better to just rest and ice and get the inflammation down. Later on, if you've had an injury for a while, then it can actually be therapeutic to begin to work the tissues even when it's painful. But that's something you want to work out with your physical therapist or your doctor. That's something that's a medical issue. It's not, it's really beyond the scope of this class here. The other area where you could have difficulty would be in your low back, like a sharp pain or a shooting pain. Once again, that might mean that you need to do the pose in a different way with more props, maybe keeping your spine straight, or again, maybe just skipping this pose today, that it's just not appropriate if you have a acute injury in your back, okay? Okay, we're going to come on up. We have one more posture. Usually in my sequences we do 2 poses and then rebound and rest, but today's class is a little different. One more. This is now targeting the back more, even though it was being stretched in the last 2 postures. Now we really are targeting the spine specifically. So again, I let my back round. This creates decompression in these joints in the low back, which tend to get compressed from all the sitting that we do. So that's very therapeutic. Again, if I have an injury, then the therapeutic benefits might be outweighed by the contraindications and the risks of either creating a new injury or worsening an injury I already have. So again, that is a medical issue. And again, if you feel like a sharp shooting pain, then that's probably a good indication that you've got a medical issue that needs to be addressed. Discomfort is different. Sometimes postures can be very uncomfortable and still be safe and actually beneficial. But again, this is something that you will need to determine. All right. If you have any questions, though, let me know. Okay, so we are going to take a break now. We call this a rebound. And the best way to rebound is just gradually come back onto your back, still your body, close your eyes, and just feel what's there. Then let's bring our legs in, give them a little squeeze, shake out the lingering imbalances or discomfort that we might feel in our body. And then let's go ahead and hinge up. So legs straight up, hands under the hips. If there's any pain in your back though, you bend your knees till that pain goes away. Lift the head and neck, take a nice deep breath. Exhale, lower the legs toward the ground. And just before they touch, pause. Inhale, pop the legs up. And exhale, let the legs pull you up to seated. Okay, this next posture can be somewhat challenging for many people, myself included. And this is a half dragonfly. So we take the legs nice and wide, and what we're trying to do is stretch here aggressively, okay? And so the way that I do that is I fold over my left foot, and I can reach down and just hold myself in place. I'm not actually pulling or yanking down, I'm just sort of holding myself in place. And again, this is the area I'm trying to stretch. So for many people, this is enough. They're going to feel it. If that's not the case, and it's not for me, so this is why I'll take it a step further, is I'll begin to stack or roll my right shoulder over my left. Now, if I play around with the angle of my torso, my shoulders, I can get a really powerful stretch into my waist and ribs. Simultaneously, I am stretching right in here, and this is what I meant by complementary, is we are targeting here, but we're also stretching here. And that's just sort of how this posture is. It stretches. It could be either one or both. So today, this is really what we're aiming for here. But if you're like me, you're not going to be able to avoid a powerful stretch here. And that's good, because we're going to stretch that area specifically in our next pose in this set, okay? Okay, so please take your time, and we will just gradually make our way over to the other side. This is our half dragonfly. Again, right in here. And always, 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 I may not always mention it, but always safety is first priority. And I would love to assume that that goes without saying, and it's just obvious to everybody. But I've been doing this too long, and I've heard too many horror stories. So there definitely are people who will put themselves into situations where they may be compromising their health when doing yoga. And I understand it's not always obvious. It's not always easy. So usually when you're in doubt, you want to be very conservative in your approach. You want to be very patient. The beautiful thing about yoga is we can practice, every day or even twice a day, depending on what kind of practice it is. And so we can be very patient. We can take our time. We can try something and see what the outcome is over the long term. And if we don't like that outcome, then we can change the way that we're practicing. And that's usually when we run into problems. When we're trying something and, our body is hurting and we keep trying and it's getting worse and worse, and we don't heed that warning, because usually the body will give us a little bit of warning before something is too bad. It may not be immediate. And again, sometimes while we do the postures, they don't necessarily feel great. But again, it's the long term that we want to look at. Okay, so one more posture. Again, today we're doing 3 poses before we rest. I know you may already want to rest. We're going to do one more. This is a frog. Now, I love this posture, but I know, again, from years of teaching that many people do not like this pose. So we come to a tabletop, knees are wide, and then you can stay up on your hands, you come down to your forearms. Some people even lay on their belly in this posture. And this is a groin or adductor stretch. So right in the inside of the thighs are where we're stretching that same region that you may have felt in the last posture. We're stretching that same region, that same area, okay? Now your feet can flex or point, they can touch or be far apart or anywhere in between. Your hips can be over your knees, or some people like to press them back toward their heels more. As always, we have a lot of options, and we want what we feel while we're holding the posture to dictate what choices we make. So really listen to your body, see what you feel, make adjustments, see how the body responds to that, and then go from there. That really is the best approach. This is in contrast to a popular approach in modern yoga, which is to think of the posture in terms of how it looks only, or mainly how it looks. And the way I was taught was really how a pose feels is the most important thing. So we want to feel safe, and we want to feel a stretch in the inside of the thigh. And then the final consideration is comfort. So if my elbows digging, if I'm on a hardwood floor, for instance, and I'm off of my mat with my elbows and they're digging into that floor and that doesn't feel good, then by all means, I can put down a blanket or some padding or reposition my body so that I am more comfortable. Okay, so let's rest. The posture I recommend to rest is child pose. Heels, hips to heels, knees together, or apart is okay too. And you can rest your forehead on the ground or on your hands. Now, this is meant to be comfortable and relaxing, but if it's not, just choose a different position to relax in. Okay, let's come up into a tabletop. We'll do a little bit of what we call marauding bear, which is just moving around freely the spine and torso, stretching everything out. And then from there, you can tuck those toes, just pedal things out, give them a good stretch. Okay, now we transition into the sleeping swan. So right knee toward our right wrist, the foot to the other side of the mat, and the hips are down. We want to feel a stretch right in here, maybe along here. We don't want to feel it in the knee or the ankle. Okay? You're welcome to stay up. We'll be here for 3 minutes, and you may be able to hold this for 3 minutes. And you're welcome to do that if you like. I'm going to come down, which tends to emphasize here more. I definitely feel it more, but you may be different. And you can have your knee, your right knee, just pointing straight ahead. Some people like to angle it out to the side. It's called abduction, so they like to abduct the knee. You can do that. This foot, so your right foot, mine is touching my left hip, the front of my left hip. That's because I don't have great what's called external rotation of this bone. It's called the femur. So that's fine, but some people who do have a lot of rotation, they actually bring the foot up. So they bring it like that. I don't know if you can see that. They bring it like that. You see, I'm pushed all the way over here because I don't have this rotation here, but other people do. And you're welcome to do that. Again, the foot can flex or point. Sometimes flexing the foot helps to stabilize the knee. So if your knee does not feel good, then you can flex that foot. It might help. The hips can rock to the left or to the right. You could put a block under here to help stabilize if you like. And again, right now we're just focusing on this muscle group, the gluteals, and that's where we're trying to stretch. Let's switch sides. So tabletop is fine. I usually do down dog, and then I just bring the other leg forward. You may not be able to go that quickly, and that's okay. My yin teacher, Paul Greeley first encountered this style of practice from a martial artist who taught what he called Taoist yoga. And he was a gentleman who was extremely flexible. And my teacher, Paul, hoped that by doing this Taoist yoga, he could become as flexible as his teacher was. That wasn't the case. His teacher just happened to have a certain genetic makeup that allowed him to be super flexible. Of course, he did things to maximize his flexibility, and one of them was basically a version of this practice. But it wasn't because of this practice that he was so extremely flexible. It was a combination of different things. So holding stretches, his genetic makeup, and other factors as well. But my teacher tells stories of this Taoist yogi doing these yin postures, and then he would like jump up and do some really active martial arts moves, and then he would just jump right into another long-held stretch. And my teacher and his wife would, slowly get up and try and move, and they would be all sensitive in their joints, like most people feel. So we're all different in that regard, and we don't want to rush. If you're like this Taoist yogi and you can pop up and do things really quick, great. I'm not the slowest, but I'm also not the fastest out of these things. And again, you just want to listen to your body. Okay, so next posture. Again, you can transition down dog, whatever you like. Here's where we're trying to get, is into what we call a sphinx. So I just prop myself. Notice my elbow is basically under my shoulder here. And what I'd like to feel is just a little bit of compression back here. If it's too much, you just slide your elbows forward. So this is still a version of what we call sphinx. It's just a very mild version. So if I had an acute or any kind of injury in my back that this hurt, then I would do that variation. Okay. For me, I don't really feel much here. There was a time when I was injured and this was a lot, and so this is where I would stay. But these days my back is healed, and so I push back to the point where I begin to feel the posture, which for me is here. And you can see I straighten my arms and I walk my hands back, and I'm trying to just gently compress my low back. Now I have options. Shoulders depressed, shoulders relaxed, head held up, drop forward, drop back, legs together or apart. And all of those things change how intense the posture is and where exactly I feel the sensations. So by bringing the legs wider, it allows more freedom in the pelvis, the tilt, and that may take some of the strain off the spine. That's neither a good nor bad thing. I do want to clarify that. So we are trying to safely and gently stress the spine, because that's part of how the spine is kept healthy and strong. The body needs regular stress in order to keep it strong and healthy. If we remove that stress, then the body actually gets very weak and unhealthy, and then we end up getting injured, not because we did anything crazy or special or fell. We just injure ourselves doing some everyday ordinary action, but our body has become so weak that it gets injured. Okay, gently, slowly coming down. Again, even though I go fairly deep into my back bend these days, I do need to take my time coming out of that one. And then before we continue, let's do a little counter stretch. So we bring our arms out like a T, bend our knees, and we'll just windshield wiper our legs. And it's important to let the hips rock as you do this. So your hips should rock from side to side as you do this motion. Okay, so we're moving on. And now we'd like to do what's called a cat tail. Okay, I'm going to turn just so I can continue facing the camera. So what we do is we bring our left leg up, like so. And then what I'd like to do is prop my head up on my right hand and elbow, like so. And then I take the right leg and I just move it back pretty much as far as I can go. So I'm laying on my right thigh. Then I bend the knee and reach back and I grab that foot if I can with my hand and my arm. Okay, and I pull the foot in towards my buttocks, and what I'm looking for is a sensation of stretch at the front of the thigh. At the same time, I lean back into the twist. Okay, so this is our twist in today's class. I don't know if it's obvious to the untrained eye, but my pelvis is facing the ground and then my chest is facing the left wall. And if I had the flexibility, I would actually lay all the way back and my chest would face the ceiling while my hips were still facing the ground. I don't have that much twist in me. I'm just not that flexible, but other people are, and so they'll go further. Okay? Most people will want to pull the foot in, but some people prefer to kick it back like a bow or a dancer pose. And feel free to do that if that's your inclination. I should mention that if this head position is not comfortable for you, you can choose another. You could rest your head on your arm or on a pillow or a blanket. Okay. So let's come on out of that. You just roll onto your belly. I'm going to turn again just so I can continue facing the camera, but you shouldn't need to turn. Okay, and we do the other side. So again, I pull this leg up here, right? And then I take the bottom leg, this leg here, the straight leg, move that one back, and then I bend the knee and grab the foot. I should have mentioned on the first side that you can have this leg, the front leg, straight or bent. And generally the straighter it gets, the more intense the stretch in the opposite leg is. Also, the closer the knee comes to your face. So down here is much less intense. I hardly feel any stretch at all. Up here, much more intense. And that's because the fascia, or connective tissue, of the two legs is actually interconnected. So a great way to think about your fascia is like a wetsuit, a really tight layer that is all interconnected. So if you had on a wetsuit and I started pulling on that wetsuit, it would kind of pull your body into certain positions. If I took parts of the wetsuit and bunched it up, grabbed it, and started yanking on it, it would distort the position of your body. this how our bodies are. There's this layer underneath our skin where everything is interconnected in a certain way, and some areas are more interconnected than others. And so our legs are pretty intimately interconnected. All right, so let's come back onto our belly. And we'll try one more posture, and this can possibly be the most challenging posture of the whole class today. So if this posture is not for you, and I'll show you what it is in a moment, but when we go there, if it's not for you, you'll repeat this, which is Sphinx or seal. Okay, this is something that almost everyone can find a version that they can do, even again if it looks like this. I've even had students with acute back injuries and they actually lay there and then it's still enough that they feel it in their back in that position. Okay, so generally everyone can do the Sphinx or seal for the most part. Saddle pose, which is the pose we're going to attempt, is a different story. Many people cannot do this safely or comfortably. Again, comfort isn't as important, but sometimes we don't know which it is. We don't know if we're just uncomfortable or we're actually unsafe. So we have to assume that we're not safe until we, in our own minds, have resolved that that's not the case. So you can sit on your heels, as I'm doing now. You can sit between your heels. And you can also sit on a block or even a stack of blocks. That will help with the knee if you sit up on something. The feet are also an issue, so if they are, again, I'm on carpet and then I have another carpet, but if you're on something harder, that can hurt those bones pressing into the ground. There are two things you can try. Add some extra padding with a blanket, roll a blanket and place it under the ankle. Or some people have the option to do that. And for me, this is much more comfortable, not just for my ankle, but also for my knee, just because of the way that my bones are shaped. Now your knees can be together, they can be apart. Usually apart is easier on the knees, just because of, again, the way that wetsuit is in the body. There's less tension as we bring those knees apart. Okay. So once you're here, today what we're looking for is a stretch in the front of our thighs. So if I don't feel that, I'm going to begin lowering back to my hands, elbows, and all the way back onto my back possibly. And then once I'm here, I might also begin to feel it in my back. And this is a very therapeutic posture for the back as well, the SI joint, sacroiliac joint, and lumbar curve. Again, it doesn't matter how therapeutic a posture is. If it injures us, in the process of doing it, the therapeutic benefit does not outweigh the risk or the dangers, so we'll just refrain from doing it. If you have a lot of injuries, if you have a lot of issues, then my recommendation is do some work with a yoga therapist if you're interested in yoga. And she can teach you how to modify the postures, to do the postures in a way that feels safe. Even doing a private session with a yoga teacher, even someone like me, I may be able to help you do that. But it's beyond the scope of a class like this one, which is for the general public. So it's important to understand, because if we have medical issues, those need to be addressed medically before we can do a class like this. Okay, so a common question with these postures: how the heck do I get out of it? There are a few ways. If you're sitting on your heels, kneeling, then it may be easiest to roll to one side and then to release your legs together. Many people like to just gradually bring themselves back up out of the posture. If you're like me and you have this strong internal rotation in your femur and your tibia, then you can just release the legs. And that's probably the easiest way for you. And then you can bring your legs in, give them a little squeeze. Move around a bit, shake it out, release. Do as much of that as you like. When you're done, my recommendation, if you've got time, is you bring your feet apart, relax your feet, bring your arms in any comfortable position, palms up, head centered, chin tucked in slightly, eyes closed. And in Yin, we call this a pentacle. And it's a restorative position, and the idea is to relax the body. So if you like something under your knees, like a big pillow, you can do that. If you want to roll a blanket to support your neck, you can do that. And what we'd like is to be so comfortable that we can just relax for the next few minutes. perfectly still, not moving at all. So see if you can set a timer for 6 minutes. Until the timer goes off, just let your body be still.